Okay, so I want to start today by asking you to just visualize your computer desktop for a second.
Hmm.
Maybe close your eyes. Unless you're driving. Please don't do that if you're driving.
Right.
But just picture that. That clutter of icons. You got your browser, some Word docs, a recycle bin you haven't emptied in, what, 6 months? And then there's that one icon, a little stack of 3 books, purple, blue, and green, strapped together with a belt.
Ah, the WinRAR icon. I mean, it is arguably one of the most recognizable pieces of graphic design in computing history.
Absolutely.
Mm.
It is the definition of digital nostalgia. It's that utility everyone has, everyone uses to unzip files, and frankly, nobody really thinks about it.
It's just there.
It's the software equivalent of a comfortable old chair. It feels
Mm.
harmless, boring even. And we all have that running joke about the infinite free trial, right?
Oh, yeah. You just click close on the purchase window and
Did
keep
that.
using it forever. It's a cultural staple.
It really is. But that specific feeling, that sense of safety, of just mundane familiarity, is exactly what makes today's deep dive so unsettling.
Because if you think WinRAR is just some dusty old utility that can't hurt you, we really need to have a conversation.
Yeah, we're looking at a stack of reports today, but
Yeah.
specifically a major high-urgency release from the Google Threat Intelligence Group that dropped just yesterday, Tuesday, January 27th, 2026.
And the headline isn't about some fancy new AI weapon or a satellite hack. It's about that little stack of books.
Exactly. It turns out that boring tool has become a primary weapon of choice for some of the most dangerous digital actors on the planet.
And I don't use the word dangerous lightly here.
No, the list of names in this report is just staggering.
Yeah.
We're not talking about some lone teenager in a basement trying to steal your Netflix password.
Not at all.
This is a global free-for-all. We have Russian military intelligence, Chinese state-sponsored actors, sophisticated financial thieves, Brazilian bank fraudsters. All of them are swarming around one specific vulnerability in WinRAR.
And here's the kicker, the part that really drives security researchers up the wall. They're all crawling through. It was fixed. It was patched way back in July of 2025.
That is the central mystery we have to unpack today. If this bug was fixed 6 months ago, why is it causing absolute chaos right now? Why is Google raising the alarm in 2026?
It's a classic, yet just devastating example of what we call the end day problem. But to really get why this is happening, we have to look at the mechanics of the trap itself. This isn't just a glitch. It's a masterclass in how attackers exploit our trust.
Okay, so let's get into the gears of this thing.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is tagged as CVE-2025-8088, and I see here it has a severity score of 8.8.
Yeah.
For those who don't follow CVSS scores, that's critically high.
It is very high. And 8.8 usually means drop everything and fix this immediately. It tells you the exploit is relatively easy to pull off and the impact is severe.
So what is the flaw, exactly? In simple terms, the report calls it a path traversal vulnerability.
Right. So to understand path traversal, you have to think about the basic contract you have with a tool like WinRAR. When you unzip a file, WinRAR is supposed to be like a polite house guest. You invite it into the kitchen, let's say a folder on your desktop, and you say, please unpack these groceries here. You expect it to stay in the kitchen.
Right. It shouldn't be wandering upstairs to my bedroom or going into the basement to mess with the fuse box.
Exactly. It's supposed to be sandboxed to that folder. But CVE 2025-8088 is a flaw that lets an attacker just break that contract. They craft a malicious .rar file that contains hidden instructions.
And these instructions tell WinRAR.
They effectively tell WinRAR, hey, forget the kitchen, go up 2 flights of stairs and drop this package in the master bedroom.
And in this analogy, the master bedroom is a specific folder on Windows, I assume.
Correct. The attackers are specifically targeting the Windows startup folder.
The startup folder? Oh, that's the VIP section of the operating system.
It is. For anyone who might not know, anything sitting in that folder gets executed automatically the moment you turn on your computer and log in.
So it bypasses the need for you to double-click an .exe file or anything later.
Exactly. Which means the attack doesn't happen right away.
That's the insidious part.
It really is.
Yeah.
You unzip the file on Tuesday afternoon. Nothing seems to happen. You see your documents, you go about your work, you shut down your PC. But Wednesday morning, when you turn it back on and log in with your coffee, boom, the malware executes in the background.
That is so sneaky because it separates the cause from the effect. If my computer acts weird tomorrow, I'm not going to blame the file I unzipped yesterday. But wait, if WinRAR drops a file in my startup folder, Wouldn't I see it?
That's where it gets really technical and honestly really interesting. The report details a technique called alternate data streams, or ADS.
Alternate data streams. It sounds like something from Ghostbusters.
It does. It's some old school Windows architecture stuff, actually. Think of a file on your computer not just as a single item, but as a container. Usually a text file just contains text. But the file system lets you attach hidden streams of data to that file.
Like a secret pocket sewn into the lining of a jacket.
That is a perfect analogy. The attackers create a decoy file. It might look like a harmless invoice.txt or a PDF, but hidden inside that file's metadata in that secret ADS pocket is a malicious Windows shortcut, an LNK file.
So I double-click the archive. I see invoice.txt, but hidden in its backpack is a digital bomb.
Precisely. When you interact with the archive to unzip it, the vulnerability triggers. WinRAR reads that hidden stream, and because of the path traversal flaw, it extracts that hidden LNK payload straight to the startup path. You never see the LNK file.
Wow.
You just open your text file, read the invoice, and you've unknowingly handed over the keys to your machine.
It's terrifying because it requires zero technical mistakes from the user other than just having an old version of WinRAR.
That's the elegance of it in a very dark way. It uses your own normal behavior against you. But to understand how this blew up into a global crisis, we have to go back to patient zero.
Right, because before this was everywhere, it was a secret weapon.
Exactly. It was used by a very specific group.
The timeline here is fascinating. The Google report mentions a group called ESET. Were the ones to originally discover this.
Correct. ESET flagged this, and they identified that a group known as RomCom, also tracked as CGAR, or UNC 4895, was using this way back in July 2025.
And at that point, it was a 0 day, right?
Yes. A 0 day means the good guys, the developers, have had 0 days to fix it because they don't even know about it yet.
So RomCom was using this in secret.
On July 18th, 2025, to be precise, they were using this exploit before the rest of the world even knew it existed.
Who was RomCom? Are they state actors? Criminals?
They're a bit of a hybrid, which makes them dangerous. They're a dual-threat group engaged in both espionage and financial gain.
Okay, so a mix.
Yeah, they've been linked to the Cuba ransomware cluster, so you have a sophisticated group using a secret weapon to break into systems, likely to steal data for spying or to encrypt networks for ransom.
And the report says they were using it to deliver a malware variant called SnipBot.
Right, SnipBot, or sometimes NestPacker. It's a modular backdoor. It lets them move around a network, steal files, and essentially set up camp inside your infrastructure.
So that was July. When WinRAR gets notified, they release a patch on July 30, 2025, version 7.13. You'd think that would be the end of the story.
In a perfect world, yes.
Game over, door closed.
But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where people hit remind me later on update notifications. And in cybersecurity, a patch release doesn't just close the door. It paradoxically paints a target on it.
How so?
Because once the patch is out, the bad guys download both the old version and the new version. They compare the code, a process we call diffing.
And by seeing what WinRAR fixed, they can reverse engineer exactly where the hole was.
Exactly. That's when the end day phase begins. The vulnerability is known, the fix is available, but the race is on to hit targets who haven't updated yet.
And looking at this report, the sharks really started circling after that patch dropped. It's like the Avengers of cyber threats showed up.
It really is. Let's talk about the geopolitical angle. The Google report highlights a very heavy Russian connection.
Right. They jumped on this.
They did. Once the vulnerability became public knowledge, multiple Russian-linked groups adopted it into their playbooks almost immediately. And the targeting is very specific. Ukraine.
Who are the main players here?
First, you have Sandworm, also known as APT44.
Sandworm. Okay, I know that name. They're a very aggressive group, right?
Power grids, critical infrastructure.
That's them. In this case, they started using the WinRAR flaw to drop decoy files with Ukrainian file names. It's a classic lure. Here is a document about critical infrastructure or something bureaucratic that just demands attention.
And you open it, the decoy opens, but the real payload gets dropped in the background.
Precisely. Then you have Gamaradon.
They target government agencies, right?
Primarily, yeah. Gamaradon is known for high-volume espionage. They targeted Ukrainian government agencies using malicious RAR archives, but they mixed it up a bit. They used HTML application files, HTA files.
Just another file type that can execute code. Exactly. Same delivery vehicle, different cargo.
And there was a third group mentioned, Turla.
Yes, Turla or Summita. These guys are often considered the elite tier. They got very specific with their lures. They were using documents centered on Ukrainian military activities and drone operations.
Wow. So imagine you're a soldier or a military analyst.
Yeah.
You see a file that looks like a drone manual or a mission briefing. You have to open it.
That's the trap. They used the exploit to deliver a malware suite called StockStay. It just shows how a single bug in a $29 utility program translates into real-world espionage.
It's not just code. It's military intelligence. It's government secrets. But it wasn't just Russia, right? The report also mentions China.
That's right. The Google Threat Intelligence Group identified a China-based actor joining the fray. Their method was slightly different. They used the flaw to drop a batch script into the startup folder.
Right.
That script would then download a dropper, which eventually installs a tool called Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy. I feel like I've heard that name for 15 years. That's an old remote access tool, isn't it?
It is a classic. It's been around forever. But in cybersecurity, if it works, it works. Poison Ivy gives them full remote control over the infected machine. Key logging, screen capture, file transfer, the works.
So you see the pattern. Different actors, different goals, different payloads, but all using the same key to open the door CVE-2025-8088.
It really emphasizes how opportunistic these groups are. They don't always build their own exploits. They grab whatever is lying around.
But here's where it gets really messy. If it stayed with nation states, that would be bad enough. But the report says this has trickled down into the underground economy. The thieves and the fraudsters are using it now.
This is the commoditization phase. You don't need to be a state-sponsored spy to use this anymore. Google saw financially motivated groups using the WinRAR flaw to deploy what we call commodity malware.
These are the off-the-shelf hacking tools you can basically just buy or download?
Exactly. Things like Asyncrat or Xworm. These are tools that let you control a computer remotely, usually to steal passwords, crypto wallets, or credit card numbers. The report mentions they're even using Telegram bots to control these backdoors.
It's mass-market cybercrime.
It is!
There was one specific example in the report that stood out to me, the Brazilian case. It felt terrifyingly clever.
Oh, the Brazilian banking case?
Oh,
That is
yeah.
a nasty one. This is a cybercrime group specifically targeting Brazilian banking users. But they didn't just install a keylogger. They used the WinRAR exploit to install a malicious Google Chrome extension.
Wait, hold on. I want to make sure I heard that right. They used a file zipper bug to install a browser extension.
Yes. Because remember, the flaw lets them drop files anywhere. If you know the file path where Google Chrome stores its extensions, you can drop a malicious extension right into that folder.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So the next time the user opens Chrome, the extension is just there.
It's there. And once it's in Chrome, it waits. It waits for the user to visit legitimate Brazilian banking websites. When they do, the extension injects JavaScript code into the real bank page.
So the user sees their actual bank's website. The URL is correct. The little SSL lock is there.
But the page has been modified locally by their own browser to steal their credentials or show them phishing content.
Oh, that's incredibly effective.
It is, because the user thinks they're in a safe environment. They did everything right, but their browser itself was compromised via WinRAR.
That is the stuff of nightmares. But how did all these different groups, from Russian spies to Brazilian bank thieves, get their hands on this so fast it feels like someone was just handing out the blueprints?
Well, according to the report, someone was. This brings us to the marketplace. Google identified an upstream supplier in the underground economy who goes by the name Zero Player.
The Zero Player. Sounds like a bad sci-fi villain, or maybe the guy who beats you in an online game.
In a way, they are gaming the system. This individual was marketing a fully functional WinRAR exploit for thousands of dollars weeks before the public disclosure.
So before WinRAR even told the world, hey, we have a problem, this person was selling the solution to the bad guys.
Exactly. And this is a critical point that Google researchers make. Suppliers like Zero Player lower the barrier to entry. If you have $5,000 or $10,000, you don't need the skill to discover a vulnerability yourself. You just buy the kit.
It's the arms dealer model.
It is. It allows diverse groups who might never have figured this out on their own to suddenly have high-level capabilities. That is why we see this explosion of activity. Zero Player essentially democratized the ability to hack WinRAR.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the so what for everyone listening. We've got this terrifying landscape, but the bug is patched. WinRAR version 7.13 fixes it. Why are we still talking about active exploitation in January 2026?
And that brings us right back to the end-day problem. An end-day vulnerability is a bug that's known and patched, but still works because people just haven't updated their systems. And let's be honest, when was the last time you updated WinRAR?
I mean, personally, I think I install it when I get a new computer, and then it just sits there until I get a new computer 5 years later. I don't think I've ever clicked update on a file zipper.
And you are the majority. We obsess over Windows updates because Windows forces us to restart. We update our iPhones immediately for the new emojis. But utility software,
Yeah, that stuff just sits there.
things like WinRAR or your PDF reader or that screenshot tool you downloaded years ago, they work fine. WinRAR from 2021 unzips files just as well as WinRAR from 2026, so we ignore them.
Google's report actually calls this out specifically. They said this underscores a defensive gap in fundamental application security and user awareness, which is, I think, a polite way of saying we're failing at the basics.
And the attackers know that. They know that while corporate networks might patch their servers quickly, Bob in accounting or a government contractor might still be running WinRAR 6.0 from 3 years ago. That is the weak link.
It's a numbers game.
Absolutely. If you send out 1 million emails, thousands of them will land on outdated machines.
And it's not just this one bug, is it? I think the report mentions another WinRAR vulnerability.
Yes, CVE 2025-8088. That one is also being exploited by groups like Grophy, Bitter, and Gamuradon again. It just reinforces the point. If you're running old software, you aren't just vulnerable to one specific attack. You're a magnet for multiple distinct threats.
You're walking around a dangerous neighborhood with a kick me sign on your back that everyone can see.
That's a great way to put it.
It really changes how you look at your computer. We tend to fear the unknown, the super advanced AI hacker. But the reality is the thing that's going to get you is probably that program you installed in 2022 and just forgot about.
That's the reality. Security isn't just about the cutting edge. It's about hygiene. It's about sweeping out the dust in the corners. It's not sexy, but it's what keeps you safe.
So let's just recap the mission here. We started with a nostalgic look at WinRAR. We found out that thanks to a past traversal flaw, CVE-2025-8088, that nostalgia has been weaponized.
We saw how RomCom used it as a 0-day. Then, once the patch dropped, it became a free-for-all for Russian groups like Sandworm and Turla targeting Ukraine, Chinese actors dropping poison ivy, and criminals stealing bank logins in Brazil.
All fueled by underground sellers like ZeroPlayer, who turn these bugs into products you can buy right off the shelf.
And it all persists because of that end-day gap. The patch exists, the users just aren't applying it.
So if you're listening to this and you have WinRAR on your machine, maybe pause the episode right now. Open it up. Check the version number.
Please do. Anything older than 7.13 is a liability. And honestly, if you don't use it anymore, just uninstall it. The safest software is the software you don't have installed.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We spend so much energy worrying about our passwords, our biometrics, our operating systems. We build these massive castle walls to keep the bad guys out.
But we forget about the furniture inside the castle.
Exactly. How often do we overlook the boring utility software that has been sitting on our hard drives for years? It makes you wonder, are our oldest, most trusted tools actually our biggest weaknesses?
Yeah.
Because right now, for thousands of people, that little stack of books isn't a library, it's a trapdoor.
And you definitely don't want to fall through it.
That's it for this deep dive. Stay safe, stay updated. Seriously, go update your stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one.